For the second straight night, Anthony Richardson marched the offense downfield for a score during the 2-minute drive to bury the Arizona Cardinals. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you all for tuning in and making us your final listen of this night. Or your third listen of the day. If you listen to our other podcast episodes we've uploaded, we've had a pretty busy day so far today, Jake. But thank you guys anyway for making this your first, second, third, whatever listen this is on today's show. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Hello, everyone. I am Zach Hicks, your favorite film nerd over at horseshoehuddle.com, and I'm joined by the boots on the ground, Jake Arthur, our credentialed media member at the site. Obviously, he is there from Colts training camp, his final Colts training camp appearance of the year. So you can get away from the rooster. Yeah, at Grand Park, yes.
I got to go to Cincinnati next week, man.
Oh, man.
The grind don't stop.
Perfect. So we will have him out there next week, but last one at Grand Park, no more roosters, no more nighttime recordings and machinery recordings and all that stuff that's going on in the background. I know you guys will miss it just a little bit. But today we are going to break down the second, the 2 of 2 joint practices against the Arizona Cardinals. Seems like it was a good day for our Indianapolis Colts. We're going to break down the Anthony Richardson day and how the Colts starting quarterback performed out there. And then we're going to dive into the offense and the defense. So Jake, sloppy day. Not for the performance of the teams out there. Sloppy day in terms of the weather. You guys are getting poured on out there. If you guys can't tell, Jake is completely soaked right now on the live stream, completely drenched from that downpour that was going on. So probably not the best conditions that you want to get out there and throw the football with your quarterback who missed all of last season with an injury. But it appears that Richardson, despite some ball security concerns early in the day, was able to finish on a pretty strong note.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been wetter in my life, despite experiencing swimming and bathing. The rain ended hours ago, and I'm just drenched still. But that kind of set the tone for the day. It took everybody a little bit of time to get acclimated to it. So basically, practice starts, and it's just like a little bit of a drizzle. It hasn't done much yet. Anthony Richardson is sharp in one-on-ones. They start from like the 15-yard line, I think, in the red zone. And boom, boom, boom. He nails out these touchdowns. The crowd's going crazy. He gets Michael Pittman Jr., Anthony Gould, A.D. Mitchell, DJ Montgomery gets out there, killing in one-on-ones. And then the rain just really starts coming down. And then that's when you get, the ball's floating a little bit. And in the, routes on air and more warm-ups they were doing. And then by the time they started 11-on-11s, he has a sloppy pass out to the boundary to Alec Pierce. And then he drops 2 consecutive shotgun snaps in a row. And then he gets it figured out. He kind of acclimates to how he needs to receive the ball. And then after that, during 7-on-7s, he put a glove on his throwing hand. And when we talked to him after practice, he called it like a magical thing and that he never wanted to take it off. So keep an eye out for that. We may see Anthony Richardson become a glove guy after this. Yeah. But no, after that and after the glove and after everybody kind of got used to the rain, he really turned it up.
Yeah, it's funny. We're never going to beat the dome team allegations when it comes to stuff like this. If our quarterback is dropping snaps in the weather, thankfully we're a dome team, so you don't have to worry about that too much. But I want to talk about that final drive because I think those are the most important bits of information that we're getting in these joint practices. They're to simulate live football. These guys aren't going like full contact by any means, but you're getting out there, you're doing 2-minute drills from a set spot on the field, go down and score offense versus defense. This is the closest you get to a real NFL game. And obviously on yesterday's practice, you talked about it in your stream this morning about how the Colts were able to score on that one. But today, you have in the notes here completed passes to Michael Pittman Jr., to A.D. Mitchell, an incomplete pass to Alec Pierce, but then a big defensive pass interference throwing the ball to Pierce, which got them close in the red zone. And then Richardson finished it off with a scramble. How did that overall drive look? I know you just mentioned it a second ago, but just that drive in particular, getting that glove on and just working the offense there. And what did you see from the starting offense and starting quarterback?
Yeah, so I think yesterday it was like 6 plays, 75 yards. This one was, including the DPI, was like 5 plays, 65, 75 yards. So they made really quick work of it. Even more impressive, again, that it was in the rain. So, you get the quick completion out to the boundary to Pittman. He kind of ad-libs, which I'll explain here in a minute, to A.D. Mitchell over the middle of the field. And then there's an incompletion to Pierce, but then, he goes downfield for about 30-ish yards towards the end zone for Pierce, but the defenders just drag him down, an obvious DPI call. And then, they get down in the low red zone, and Anthony goes on a scramble and takes it from there. Scrambles for a 7-yard touchdown. It would have been a touchdown in any scenario. It wasn't just because they couldn't hit him. But he had room to go. He could make guys miss. It was an easy touchdown for him. But he was asked about that play specifically to Mitchell after practice, and this is where we're really seeing the cerebral growth of Anthony. Before the play, he noticed AD in the slot without really anyone covering him close enough. He saw a ton of green in front of AD, so he said, "I'm going to find a way to get him the ball over the middle of the field," because he was like, obviously in those late game situations, you want to find the boundary and stop the clock and everything, but it was too enticing to not go to AD there. So I think they killed the clock after that, maybe, but it was a really heads up play by him, and again, him taking ownership of the offense and feeling free enough to be able to kind of make those decisions on his own.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear there. And I know that I think it was James Boyd that asked him after practice, and I know it's something that we've talked about throughout all of training camp, but just to make sure it's still in the Anthony Richardson segment that we're talking here, there's been that noticeable discrepancy between 7-on-7s and 11-on-11s. And Richardson talked after practice about that, right? I know, again, you guys have talked to him a bunch about this throughout training camp, but did he have anything new to say about the difference between his 7-on-7 play and 11-on-11 play tonight?
Not entirely. It's just kind of the same thing that Shane had recently said. It's just kind of, it's a whole, your mentality totally changes when you can feel there's pressure coming. Like during 7-on-7s, you're literally only looking out at the coverage and at the receivers. You're not having to worry about what's coming up at you. And it's like a switch flips, and he really embraces making plays on the move and having to process those reads quicker as he rolls out and, is dodging guys. It just kind of changes something in him and adds more urgency. It speeds up his reads, but he's able to read defenses and manipulate guys, as you've seen even going back to Florida. He's able to manipulate coverage. So for a guy like that who is kind of advanced in that sense, at least compared to what people thought he was going to be, it works because he's able to process things so quickly.
Yeah, my big theory when it came to how well he plays in 11-on-11s, and we had a good comment here about, you like seeing your quarterback turn up the heat when the lights come on. But I think part of it, honestly, is when you're a guy like him who you always have the accuracy concerns like surrounding you, and you work so hard to fix that. You work with trainers in the offseason, you work with individual throwing coaches and stuff like that to make sure everything mechanically is perfect. So that way you're able to complete passes. It gets you a little bit robotic when you're not facing pressure. And I'm sure that's exactly what's happening to him. Because I think what you guys have said a lot throughout training camp is when he misses, he's been missing high in those 7-on-7s and 1-on-1s. And that says that he's just not stepping into throws. He's not driving into those. He's throwing off the back foot a little bit. So when that pressure is coming and he's not thinking about all these mechanical things, he still has that innate thought process of those mechanics, but it's not something he's actively thinking about. It's something that becomes second nature. And he's able just to throw the football the way that an athlete throws the football, just stepping into it and doing his thing. So I think it's just a less thinking, which is a good thing. It can be a good thing. If it leads to better accuracy, it can be a good thing. But whatever the reasoning is, Anthony Richardson, overwhelmingly positive, I would say, through these 2 days. And I'm sure that you would completely agree there, Jake. Very, very good joint practice sessions. He's not going to play this weekend against the Arizona Cardinals because they got in so many throws in these joint practices. So we'll see a lot of Sling and Sammy and Jason Bean and Keaton Slovis. But overall, it's just a really strong week, I think, from Anthony Richardson and this Colts offense. But speaking of the Colts offense, we're going to transition to the rest of the guys that were out there with Richardson and talk about a little bit of how they looked in these joint practice sessions. But first, this show is sponsored by BetterHelp. What are your guys' self-care non-negotiables? Maybe you never skip leg day. Or maybe you're like me and you only skip leg day. You always skip leg day. Maybe you never skip your bubble bath at the end of the day, or you skip, your hobbies like I do. That's my big thing. Always making time for my hobbies. Whatever your non-negotiables are, when your schedule is packed with kids activities like you're with Jake, your big work projects and all these other things, it's easy to let your priorities slip. Even when we know what makes us happy, it's hard to make time for it. But when you feel like you have no time for yourself, non-negotiables like therapy are more important than ever. Look, guys, I've been to therapy so many times in my life, I can't even count anymore. But it's always been a great crutch for me, a great thing I can lean on whenever I need help. And with BetterHelp, it's a way to give you that really entirely online experience of therapy. And it kind of takes away that anxiety of sitting down in front of someone in that awkward chair. It kind of brings the comfort back to therapy and lets you be in that comfort zone. So it's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule as well. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. And thank you all for making Locked On Colts your first listen today. For your second listen or your fourth listen, whatever this is going to be, make sure you check out the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. Get daily insight into the best fantasy draft strategy so you can win your league this season. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Jake, we're talking Colts offense in these joint training camp sessions. Now, we're not going to have a ton to talk about here because we already talked about Richardson, so I'll kind of just quiz you on how the Colts offense has looked in these past couple of days. But you did mention at the start, you said what Anthony Gould had a touchdown in one-on-ones, Pittman, AD, like all these guys were having some good touchdowns in one-on-ones. Anybody else really stand out to you in either the one-on-one sessions or the 7-on-7s, non-Richardson, obviously?
Yeah, so someone who, kind of gets lost in the shuffle a little bit, but made his way onto the Colts roster last year was Juwan Winfrey. So not even some of the best receivers don't fare well in the rain. It's totally natural. Like the ball is more slippery. A lot of guys ditch the gloves and then they try and, acclimate to that. But some guys just have the natural ability and they understand how they have to change their body to allow the ball to get in. And so Juwan Winfrey was one of those guys today. He made a couple really acrobatic touchdown grabs during one-on-ones. I think he had one during 7-on-7s as well. But the one in one-on-ones, he bobbled it with one hand and then brought it in, was able to get down with possession. Really impressive one. With Ashton Doolin out and Anthony Gould getting a lot more work with the first team, Joe Flacco's had to find new guys to get comfortable with. So Winfrey's definitely one of them. And then Alec Pierce, I was really impressed with him. He's a guy that is, they're going to probably have a rainy game sometime this season. And I like the fact that they probably found out a lot about their offense today. For Anthony, he knows that maybe he's going to be more comfortable with a glove. It's not something he's going to have to figure out. He's going to have to be more careful taking those shotgun snaps. But he also knows now which receivers might fare a little better in the elements, Alec Pierce being one of them. He had 2 touchdowns today during the 7-on-7s from Anthony. Both there in the end zone. They're shorter stuff in the red zone. But I was more impressed they were hands catches still, because when you're catching the ball in the rain, a lot of times you got to let it come into your body and kind of absorb it. But he's more sure-handed than people like to give him credit to, because they point to one or two drops he's had before. But he's got strong hands and knows how to high point the ball, whether it's in the rain or dry or whatever. But I was really impressed with those two guys specifically. And Winfrey, it probably doesn't matter when it comes to the regular season, but Pierce, that is probably going to be important at least once this season.
Awesome. Now I'm going to hit you with general offensive questions just from training camp and from these last couple of days. But before I do that, the one more thing I did want to notice or want to ask you is we keep hearing on the other side of the ball how the Colts defensive line has been killing the Cardinals offensive line. It's really hurt the Cardinals' ability to get their offense moving, especially in those 2-minute drills. But I haven't heard anything about the Cardinals pass rush doing anything to the Colts offensive line. Was the Colts offensive line looking that good, or am I only seeing the rose-colored glasses here from this side?
The starting line's been pretty good. So yesterday they had a sack on Anthony. They had another one today, but it might have been on Joe. They had one yesterday on Joe as well. I feel like it's mostly the second team line that's a little more leaky. I made kind of a comment about Blake Freeland today, because they got a sack and I noticed he was getting himself up off the ground. But I mean, luckily it's the first team offensive line that's doing a little better. Anthony hasn't had to be flushed out too much. He's obviously built different. He can escape much more than than a Joe Flacco can, obviously. But yeah, I haven't counted two. I think I've really only counted like one, maybe two would-be sacks on Anthony in the last couple of days.
That's good. So,
and the run game has done really well too. So that the Cardinals were dead last against the run last year. So they've added to the defense at all levels this offseason, but that's not just going to magically fix itself overnight.
Yeah, but still, it sounds like a really good 2-day stretch for the offense just in general in these joint practices. I mean, protecting the quarterback's in a good rhythm, receivers making plays, running games looking good. I know it's the Arizona Cardinals, but this is still an NFL defense. Maybe not a good NFL defense, but it's an NFL defense. So we love to hear that. A couple of quick hitters, just, some of these are a little softball questions, but just offensive questions I wanted to hit on. Obviously, last year, we talked a lot about the Colts wide receiver depth, talking about how they only went into the year with 3 guys. And then when they brought McKenzie back, he was off the team by the end of the year. DJ Montgomery was wide receiver 4 and stuff. So this is an obvious question, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on it. When you're watching this wide receiver room, not even necessarily the starting guys, but like just the guys like Gould and Doolin, and even the step that Montgomery's taken, do you feel so much better about the wide receiver depth this year compared to, this time last year, maybe even any other time in the Chris Ballard era?
I would think so. And I'll be honest, I feel like we say that every year though. But like, I do legitimately feel better this year about it than I did last year. Again, they carried essentially 3.5 receivers into week 1. They let Isaiah McKenzie go and then they brought him back before the week was up. But right now, you and I have discussed, there are 6 receivers we feel are safe.
Yeah.
And I think that's legitimate this time. And really, there's 7 that have a great argument for the roster if you include DJ Montgomery. They're obviously not going to keep 7 receivers, but Pittman, Pierce, Downs, Mitchell, they're there. Gould is not going anywhere. Doolin, you've got to think he's pretty safe as well. There's your 6. Montgomery's had a great summer as well and was on the roster at times last year. That's probably going to be one of their toughest cuts, but again, I can't imagine keeping 7.
Yeah. And then speaking of receivers still, I feel like the last couple years in training camp, we've seen a couple days where Alec Pierce has had some good training camp days, but overall his training camps haven't been like spectacular. This year it feels like it's been a lot more prevalent, the Alec Pierce days. And I'm wondering if you're noticing anything different from him. Like, again, we don't want to get too excited because at this point you kind of know what you're getting from him, but does it felt like a little bit different from Alec Pierce this summer?
Yeah, maybe more frequent, like more consistency.
Yeah.
Because his route tree's probably broadened a little bit. He's not just the downfield guy. I've noticed him making more like 10-yard catches, for example. And that allows you to be a bigger part of the offense because you're not such a niche player at that point. Now, I don't think he's going to be an enormous part of the passing game this year. Like, it'll be better than last year just because his strength will be able to be utilized. in the downfield stuff. But I mean, I think he's made himself more useful as a receiver just by probably being able to have more routes under his belt.
Yeah, it's been fascinating to see because when we went into training camp this year, you were talking about like he's working with special teams, he's working with these things, he's working at both X and Z receiver at times in camp and stuff, like doing so many different things, wearing so many hats,
Mm-hmm.
and now you're seeing more production in 7-on-7s, for instance, where last year it was a lot of 1-on-1s and 11-on-11s. Now it's more in the 7-on-7s too in the intermediate game. So I'm not trying to get out here and say Alec Pierce is going for 1,000 yards. The Colts passing offense will go through Downs and Pittman.
Mm-hmm.
But look, if Pierce can just be a more consistent version of what he's been the last couple years, that's good enough for me. So I'm hoping
if he can draw a 30-yard defensive passer, he could catch 5 balls all year. I don't care if
that's true.
If he's
that's
getting
true.
30-yard DPIs once every game and a half, like that's cool.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So we'll see. I'm tentatively excited about this entire wide receiver room. And if I could learn how to say the word tentatively excited about this wide receiver room. But we'll see. We do have defense to talk about as well. Now, Jake, I don't think you watch too much defense, but look, Jake has his sources. He has his resources. He went around there. He asked people who did watch defense. So we're going to talk all about the Colts defense here in just a second. But first, I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer and fewer games, and the sports stop sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up any bets anytime I am in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Look, guys, we're kind of sickos here at Locked On Colts, so we're betting on the preseason. The Colts are 3.5 point favorites at home this Saturday with a combined over under a 36.5. And look, if Sling and Sammy's going to get a whole half in this game, the Colts are going to pass 36.5 points by the end of the first quarter because it's Sling and Sammy in the preseason, baby. We know what's coming. He's going to be ripping that ball down the field. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer with preseason football betting. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, Locked On Colts everydayers. Now, I would love to finish this last segment only talking about Sammy Ehlinger, but we're here to talk defense. Now, Jake, again, I know that you weren't particularly focused on the defense, but from what you heard, I'd probably talking to Nate Atkins, I'm assuming, because he's the only one crazy enough to only watch the defense. What was going on there with the Colts defense today?
Yeah, so some of my notes are from Nate. Some of them are my own observations, though, because at the end of the day, when they were working on the 2-minute drills, they had everybody on the same field. So I got to see a little bit of the Cardinals offense and Colts defense. But a theme throughout the day and really throughout yesterday as well were Latu and DeForest Buckner are terrorists to the Cardinals. Like, they relentless. Like, play in and play out. If it's a passing play, Kyler is going to run his little legs all over the field to get away from those guys. And it looks like you just forecast it to the season in a regular season game, and you're like, this is going to be a thing for the Colts. Buckner and Latu lined up next together on those passing downs. Chef's kiss. Like, it's pretty nasty to watch. It's really good. Latu had another would-be sack today. Buckner, again, he's a double-sided player, run game and pass rush. But God, like, I don't want to overhype a player too much, but like, when was the last time a non-quarterback for the Colts looked this good this early, like as a first-round pick?
Yeah,
like it's been a minute. Like, Latu is of course Nelson, but yeah, like Latu is like, he seems as good as advertised so far. And for a pass rusher, like, to get one that early that is that good, it's as rare as finding a quarterback that early. And the Colts might have done it in back-to-back years, and that's just incredible to think about for the future of the team.
The pass rusher that Chris Ballard has been looking for 8 years now.
One that doesn't even fit his normal mold.
Right. He finally found it. Now, I would love to keep talking about Latu because we're all really excited about what he can bring this year. But one thing I really wanted to focus on here, and this is something that you saw because it's the end of practice, the Colts' first and second team defense is really stepping up in those 2-minute drills. Now, to preface it, Jake explained this to me before we started recording. First and second team offense for both teams had a chance to go against first and second team defenses for both teams at the end of practice. And if the offense stalled out and wasn't successful the first time, they got a second chance to do it. And same with the second team offenses as well. So for the Colts first team offense, they went down and scored right away. So it was over, like nice and easy. I think, did the Colts second team offense also go down and score right away?
No, they did not.
Oh, whatever. In my mind, they did. We're gonna just pretend here for a second. But when it came to the Colts first team defense versus the Cardinals first team offense, 2 stops, got them off the field twice. And then for the Colts second team defense as well against the Cardinals second team offense, 2 stops. So 4 for 4, perfect 4 for 4 at the end of practice. What happened on those series there? Was it Latu and Buckner? Was it the secondary? Like, what really happened on those final 2 series, or final 4 series, I guess?
Yeah, so though your first shot at it starts at like the 35-yard line, I think, your own. So it's going to be like a 65, 75-yard drive. And for the Colts, that's the one they cashed in on right away within 5 plays. So if that part of it wasn't successful, they moved you up to like the 5 or 10-yard line so you could play in the low red zone. And so the Colts kind of got shut them out on a full field drive as well as a low red zone. So that was kind of even more impressive about it. But no, it was just the pass rush was getting home. Kyler was having to throw on the run, made a couple errant throws, just generally just closing it down on third down when it was most important. There wasn't anything particularly outstanding about what was happening, just forcing incompletions and being tight in coverage, basically. Now, on one of the second team drives, I think it was Arizona's first attempt with the second team. So it was Clayton Tune at quarterback. Darrell Baker Jr. got the interception on that one and closed it out. So I think the other one just kind of stalled out, and they probably got like a pass break up there in the end zone. So defense really stepped up. I think the combination, like if you put it in a game scenario, the offense going and scoring so quickly, and then the defense shutting the door on the rebuttal, that has to be absolutely everything that the coaches wanted to see, combined with that first team offense and first team defense.
Yeah. Now look at this, guys. Look, we've been complaining about the secondary all week. They shut out the Arizona Cardinals, baby, in the 2-minute drill. Like, this defense now is going to be a Super Bowl winning defense.
Is this a bad time to mention that I heard Marvin Harrison Jr. had Jalen Jones in hell for a portion of practice?
No, that never happened. There's no video. Well, there probably is.
Probably from the stands. I will say, though, bounce back day for Juju Brents, though.
That's good.
Because he was in hell yesterday. But he just didn't look right. But he came back today, had a good day, had a pass breakup against Kyler Murray. Kenny Moore came in and had a nice interception, looked like a would-be pick 6 during 7-on-7s. The Colts tweeted that video out just before we went on, if anyone hadn't seen that yet. So nice bounce back day for Brent. Kenny Moore keeps doing his thing. He kind of was on the wrong end of a little viral video from practice yesterday where Marvin had him in the spin cycle, but
it's Marvin. It's fine. It's Marvin.
Exactly. It's fine. Same thing. I'm not going to crucify Jalen Jones for it. Like Marvin Harrison Jr. is like truly one of the generational type prospects. Not the version that gets thrown around every year, but like an actual high end draft pick.
Yeah, for sure. Now, real quick before we close out today, I know Shane Steichen mentioned that the starters are not going to play on Saturday. Did he go into any more detail on that? Like, someone like Latu is not a starter, but
no, and we know not to like list off a bunch of players because he's not going to give it to us. But no starters and no Joe Flacco.
Okay, I would guess. Nick Cross probably gets a little bit of run out there.
Yeah. So guys who are in limbo or still trying to earn like key spots, I think may play a little bit. Like you said, Nick Cross is probably going to be out there. Maybe Ronnie Harrison will be a bit, but like guys who are no doubt starters or don't need to really prove anything, I don't think they're going to be out there.
Going to keep an eye on what they do at tight end. Is it the top 3 tight ends all not going to play? Mo, Drew, and Kylan? Like,
I doubt it. I mean, they have things to figure out with those other guys. Same thing with like I don't know that AD Mitchell would play.
yeah, and he's like wide
I mean,
receiver 4-ish.
right?
Like,
Because he's in the key rotation. I don't know that they really need to see much from him. Now Gould will probably play, but I don't know that AD will.
yeah,
That's
true.
That's not Shane didn't say that. That's just me guessing. But
right, Taven Bryan, will he play? He's a pretty valuable top of the roster guy.
The sad thing is I don't know that he will.
I think he'll play the first half. I think he'll play out there a little bit, but yeah, okay, cool. So if you guys are, again, 3.5-point favorites is what the Colts are this weekend. If you want to put some money on a game with like third stringers playing out there,
can I say something worse?
What?
Okay, so I'm about to go cover a primetime game where Sam Ehlinger will be the starter and Jason Bean will be the closer. And I'm going to continue working well past midnight that night. Like you and me are going to go on probably after midnight that night or around it.
Yes.
It's a primetime game, man.
Yeah, if you guys want a delirious Zach here, just doing jumping jacks over Jason Bean, throwing like 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, you guys tune in.
If you want Zach in his bag, prime Zach, this post-game show Saturday will be the episode for you.
Yes, I'll be wearing like a onesie and ready in a nightcap and all that, and I'll be ready for bed. Yeah, I'll try. I'll find a onesie for it. But yeah, guys, it is late here already right now. The Arizona Cardinals Saturday night. Make sure you guys are tuning into that game at 7 p.m. We'll be recording after that one as well. So really fun time coming up. And I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Colts your first, second, and third listens today. For your fourth listen, go listen to the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. Get daily insight into the best fantasy draft strategies so you can win your league this season. If you guys want to become a Locked On Colts insider and chat with us directly and get that insider scoop, follow the link in our show notes. And if you guys don't already, make sure you're following at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, and at Zach Hicks 2, all on Twitter. We're also on TikTok and Instagram. You guys can follow us there as well. Locked On Colts over there on those places. And also subscribe to us on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. We love your guys' ratings, reviews, and we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow afternoon.